Time keeps on leaving and we keep on moving. When do we pass on our wisdom to the youth? My veteran story, lost arts discussions, fireside chats with a bourbon or two. It's time to hear the stories by military veterans. Get yourself ready. It's the Lost Arts Podcast. The Lost Arts with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast giving a voice to our veterans. On today's episode, we're going to have a My Veteran Story with the Marine veteran, Cory Rothman. Can't wait to hear his story. We go a little ways back, back when I had my very first band, so I'm excited to hear what he has to say. Anyways, if you're enjoying the podcast as much as I'm enjoying doing the podcast, be sure to go to our website, thelostart.podbean.com. Go on there. There's a merchandise tab. Click on that. Go get you some merchandise, a cool hat, kind of like this hat right here, or a cool shirt, something like that. Help support us, and so we can get our veteran voices out for all to hear. All right, with that, I got Cory here. How you doing?
Doing well, Mr. Cox. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good to see you, man. You're looking good. Yeah, you got a little bit of gray in your beard there.
Little bit.
Yeah, it seems to happen. I don't know what happened to us young guys.
It's amazing how fast we get old. It comes way too quickly.
That's no joke right there.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, it's been a long time, but I've never heard your whole story. You've done a lot of great things, so I'm excited to hear about it. But let's take it all the way back to the beginning, where you grew up. Tell us a little bit about that, and then what led you to the Marine Corps.
Absolutely. So even though I'm living in California now, I'm actually born and raised in the Midwest in Wisconsin. So that's pretty much where it all started. And like you said in the beginning, we were in the same band together. But so, the whole musician thing has always kind of been there my whole life. Started out, in fourth grade, I think like anybody kind of did. And really it grew from there. It's I was one of those guys that obviously I love music. I loved being in the band, did everything throughout, middle school, grade school, high school, and actually even into college. But what was interesting about how I kind of got into the whole military side of things was a little twofold. First off, my stepsister was actually a Marine, and she actually went into the Corps and did 8 years active duty. Absolutely loved it. Had nothing but good things to say about the Corps. So that was one thing. But then I also had quite a few of my really close friends in high school go into the Marines, and actually they didn't do active duty; they did reserves. And so there was a few reserve units in Wisconsin. So of course I always heard those stories and whatnot. But really, it came down to two things. First off is that my senior year of high school, we actually had the 9th Marine Corps District come into one of our rehearsals for band, and it happened to be one of the recruiters one of the MEOP guys. And I don't remember if it was Gunny Levine at the time that actually came in for that session. I want to say that it was, but I could be wrong. But nonetheless, it was a great presentation. Thought it was, kind of throwing it around in my head. And I said, well, as much as that sounds like a really amazing opportunity, I told them, I said, hey, I'm already set up to go to University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. I'm, doing my 4-year degree. I know what I'm doing. I want to be a band teacher. I want to be a music teacher, and I'm going to do a minor in computers. So I said, thanks, but no thanks. So going a little forward from there, obviously went into a 4-year university out of school. And like I said, I was a music major to start off with. And it was probably about the end of the first year, I said to myself, hey, you think about all the things, and this is still happening today, but it was happening quite a bit back in the day when you and I were going through schools, that you think about, what are the two things in schools when budgets are starting to get cut are always on the chopping block. It's never going to be the football team. It's never going to be the wrestling team or whatever. It's always art and music. That's always on the chopping block. And I said, man, do I really every year want to be worrying about my program being cut? As much as I love teaching kids, as much as I love music, is that something that I really want to do the rest of my life? And so the end of the first year, I actually changed up my major and minor, and I actually changed to a music minor and changed to a tech or IT. It was actually called MIS, Management Information Systems, changed that to my major. So still was doing music, still doing all of that, but decided because I had this love for computers and technology, I wanted to have that in my back pocket as well. So therefore, I could essentially maybe have two options of where I wanted to go. So fast forward to the end of the second year, and I wasn't one of those fortunate kids that had mom and dad paying for everything, all my tuition, expenses, all those types of things. I was taking out thousands and thousands of dollars of student loans.
Oh yeah.
And I said, man, you know what? I have no money to go back to school for my junior year. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but I think I was sitting in my dorm room one night and I said, what am I going to do? And I think I was talking to one of my again buddies from high school that were Marines, and I just had this really weird. I said, "Man, wait a second. What if I wonder if that opportunity is still on the table to enlist in the Marines and become, a Marine musician." So long story short, from that perspective, I essentially just walked when I came back home for the weekend. Actually, it was at the end of the school year. I came back home. And next day, I drove over to the mall. Actually, the recruiting office was in the mall where I grew up in West Bend, Wisconsin, and talked to one of the recruiters there. And he actually became a really good friend of mine. But he said, "Well, let me give a call. Let me see what we can do." And it just so happened that I believe that now this is the time that I remember for sure it was Gunny Levine at the time. He came back and arranged to have another audition for myself. And of course, it was more of just a formality than anything else, just because it had been essentially 2 years. But obviously, I'd gotten better being a college musician now versus a high school musician.
Right.
And so we ran through the audition and all of that. And they said, "Well, we got a spot. If you want to go, let's go." And so basically I said, "Well, I got nothing going on. I have no way to go back to school. I'm out of money. The only way I'm going to find out if this is something I really want to do is to just do it." And there was a small variable, though, is that the spot that they had for me wasn't open right at that moment. And so what was interesting, and my dad lost his mind about this, thank God. I want to say I'm appreciative that he did this, because I don't know what would have happened if I would have done that. But I went down to MEPS, getting ready to go. And the reason they actually had me go open contract first, saying that, well, as soon as that spot opens up, we'll put you into the spot. But if you're going to go now, you got to go open contract. We can't do you 55-37.
Wow.
All right, well, and I said, well, obviously I'm a younger kid, but everyone said, whoa, 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 never go into the military. Someone's saying they're going to do something for you, and all of a sudden you go and open contract. You could end up being a cook. You could be in, infantry. You could, God only knows what could happen. They said, you're not doing that. So my dad literally ripped me out of MEPS and said, "You are not going." And I don't remember the exact timing. I want to say it was maybe 2 months later, maybe a month and a half. The spot was opened. We got the contract signed with the MEOP option. We were good to go. So, and then I took off. And that was, so I got out, or I left school. Yeah, that would have been May, June time of 94. I'm sorry, of 96. Sorry, graduated in 94. 96, left school. And so I shipped off to boot camp August of 96. So that begins now the journey into the Corps. And so now it gets really interesting. I will say when I left for boot camp, and actually here I'll throw up a picture here just to kind of share a little bit. This was actually the night that I left to go down to MEPS. This was my recruiter.
Nice.
At the time. His name was Sergeant Flores. So as you can see here, I wasn't the most in shape guy. We'll just put it that way. I was roughly about, we'll just call it 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with everyone that I could actually not do the full 3 pull-ups, to get past everything. But he said, hey, I was working out with him. We were going to the Y every day. He said, you'll get there. Hopefully you'll get and knock him out and, you'll be good to go. Well, so
Right.
I
Yeah.
show up. I get to MCRD San Diego. And of course, going through processing, receiving, and everything else. And then we get to, well, now it's time to put up or shut up. Everything
Right.
else was fine. I literally could only do 2 pull-ups. I
Oh
could
no.
not get the 3.
Yeah.
So what happens? I get to go to PCP for a month, physical conditioning
Okay.
platoon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, I spent the next 4 weeks. So I got there in August, spent the whole entire month of August in PCP, working out 3 times a day, basically eating next to nothing, and was finally then able to, by the first week of September, actually, no, I think it was the second week of September, was able to do everything I needed to do, got picked up with Fox Company, Platoon 2038, and started then my real boot camp, you could say,
Yeah.
in September. So, unlike everyone else that did, the standard, 3 months or 12 weeks, whatever, I did an additional 4 weeks. So I was then literally in boot camp for 4 months instead of
Nice.
3. So
Yeah.
I was a seasoned veteran, we'll say, by the time I got picked up. So that kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it does suck because you have to be there much longer. And then, but
Yeah.
on a positive side, you probably learned all the little ins and outs of the like the different stuff that you had to learn as far as the mental aspect and those types of things, what's happening.
Yeah.
So you got a little bit of a leg up on the platoon when you picked up, and it was Fatal Fox that you picked up with, so that's not
Yep.
bad. So
Yep. And actually, it was kind of nice because in our downtime, of course, our little green monsters, I don't know if they still use those
uh,
today, but
yeah,
so I got a jump start on the studying, and everything else. So literally when I picked up, I was already been there for 4 weeks. And so literally, I think within maybe 2 or 3 weeks, they made me one of the squad leaders because I already knew a lot of the stuff. I
yeah,
already
yeah, yeah,
had the routines down and all that. So no surprise there. But anyways, yeah, it was unfortunate because obviously part of starting in August is they said, yeah, you'll be home for the holidays, before you go out to
oh,
MCT, you'll have a little bit of time with the family. Well, spending an extra 4 weeks there now, I'm not scheduled to graduate until after Christmas, which, we ended up graduating the first week of January.
right,
But one thing is interesting. I'll show this other picture. Not a lot of people know, I mean, the people that know me know this, but this type of thing doesn't happen very often, is that during our graduation, I was actually in the lead for the motor run. I was up there with the company commander. I don't remember his name,
nice,
but I'm standing there with him in the front of the parade deck. As you can see, it just had rained in San Diego before our end of our moat run there. They brought me up front, and literally in 4 months, I lost 100 pounds exactly. So I went from
holy cow,
300 pounds down to 200 pounds. And he wanted to highlight, the company commander wanted to highlight this to all of the friends and family and everyone in the audience. And then, of course, the rest of the Marines out there, that they essentially chose me as, I don't even think this is something official. He probably just made it up because I've never heard it before. But I was the most improved recruit of the Fox Company, group or the battalion for that graduation, and they wanted to recognize that I had spent that much time there, lost that much weight, and then of course was able to graduate. So I don't think that's
that's
something
really
that
cool.
happened. I don't think that's something that happens very often. I don't know if you ever saw it happen.
I No, I mean they do have like they have the honor grads and
Yeah,
stuff like that, but not necessarily kind of just highlighting somebody. So
yeah.
that is really cool.
Yep. So that was very interesting. So essentially, okay, graduated, got out first week of January there, was able to go home. And fortunately, because I become very close with my recruiter there, was actually able to do a couple weeks of recruiter's assistance to spend a little bit of extra time at home just because I'd been gone for so long before heading out to MCT. So I did do that at home and had a great time doing that. Was able to go and talk to a lot of different kids at schools, and obviously was talking a lot to the band and things like that, just because they knew I was going in for that. And then essentially went off to MCT, and then of course went off to the School of Music. And so
Yeah.
spent the normal amount of time there. Had an absolutely great time in Virginia Beach. I'd never actually been out really to the East Coast. I was a Midwest kid that never went anywhere. My parents, we never traveled. If we did travel, it was going to our grandparents' house or, things
Right.
like that. We didn't take trips anywhere. We couldn't afford those types of things. But
Was going to Virginia Beach then, was it kind of a shock for you? Like I just found out today that Virginia Beach, and this is what my wife told me, but Virginia Beach is the largest city in Virginia. I didn't know that.
I did not know that either.
I,
Okay.
I did not look it up myself. I didn't see it, but that's what my wife said, so I'm going to trust it.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it,
yeah,
it was it was definitely a shock to me. I'd never been. That's the first. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say. I guess I did see the ocean technically when we were at Camp Pendleton in boot camp, so that was the
yeah,
first time I saw the ocean. But I never saw the other side of the country, so that was the first time really seeing the ocean there and being on the coast. And I loved it. I actually thought Naval Amphibious Base Little Creek was a wonderful base. Had great people there, made great friends, had an actually wonderful time. I can't say anything bad about the time spent there. And, some of the people I was there in the school with absolutely, ended up serving with them in 29 Palms once I got to the base and my
yeah.
first duty station. But what was interesting, I will say quickly about, towards the end there, I don't remember exactly when it happens. I know you worked at the School of Music, so you probably know, but I remember coming in and it was Gunny Mummy at the time.
Yeah, Gunny Mummy.
Um, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was funny when they said, my original wish list when I was picking places to go, I'm pretty sure I think Hawaii was number one.
Yeah.
I want to say El Toro at the time was number two, and
Okay.
number three was New Orleans. Those were the three
Okay.
places that I wanted to go. So I come in and they say, "Hey, what was your first one?" No, you're not going there. What was your second one? Nope, you're not going there. What was your third one? Nope, you're not going there either. He goes, "What do you think about the desert?" And I said, "I don't know. I've never been there." He goes, "What about 29 Palms?" I said, "Where the hell is that? I've never heard of 29 Palms." So, well, guess what? You're going to 29 Palms whether you like it or not. So, of course, as the old saying goes, the needs of the core, and that's
That's
exactly
right.
what happened. So, yeah, jumped on a plane and landed in Palm Springs.
Oh man.
And that would have been, it was sometime in the summer. I want to say it was either June or July. Got off that
Yeah.
plane and had that heat smack me in the face.
Oh yeah.
And I remember a couple of the Marines that they picked me up in a 5-ton stake bed truck. So, my sea bags and all that going to the back of the truck. And here we are driving from Palm Springs back up to the high desert. I don't remember if there was air conditioning in that 5-ton or not. I feel like there
There
wasn't because
can't
I
be.
was
There
hot
couldn't have
as
been.
hell. Yeah.
I think every vehicle we took supposedly had AC, but I don't think it ever worked.
Yeah, exactly. So I got there. It was late at night, I remember, and just threw me in a barracks room with Svoboda, and it was actually what was the other guy's name? I can't. Hewitt. It was actually
Oh yeah.
Corporal Hewitt at the time. I was thrown in their room. They had an extra space until I, actually got my real barracks room, and then all the fun started. And just being there in the high desert, the hot, the heat, the sand, being on, the Air Ground Combat Center, which was, it's a training base. So, I mean, you can't really
Yes.
expect much. It's a lot of transition in and out from all the reserve units and other units around, the world. But that was my home now, for the next essentially 3.5 years. So, yeah.
Wow. So that of course is another big change, right? You go from Wisconsin, San Diego, although you didn't get to see a lot of San Diego, but that area now the East Coast, you get to feel a little bit of what that's like,
Yeah.
and then hey, out to the desert, you to the turtles, the desert tortoises.
Yeah. Exactly. Actually, one thing, Andrew, I'll mention is that just for historical purposes,
Yeah.
Back to the boot camp thing, though, we were actually, I was supposed to be the first group going through the Crucible, but I ended up being the second group that actually went through what is now the Crucible and is part of every
Yeah.
Marine's journey. So, this was very, very brand new, of course, when I was going through boot camp, and we were one of the first ones to literally go through it. They were still learning. All the DIs had no idea what to expect. This was brand new for them. So, I think that was a really interesting historical fact that we were very early in that whole new thing of the Crucible, and now it's just part of every Marine's journey. So really
Yeah.
interesting to actually go through that early in the progression.
And that was 96, right?
That was 96. Yeah.
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 Okay. And so did you happen to see if it was the second go round, was like did the commandant come in, or any of the bigger name individuals? Because I know they came down for the first time through. I was just
Yeah.
wondering if they went down for another.
I don't recall them being there, to be honest. It was a very obviously, very emotional time, once you
Yeah.
get to the end of the Crucible and you're getting your EGA and all that. So I mean, I remember obviously my DIs being there, but I don't remember any special guests being there. So I was just happy to be done, of course. But yeah,
Yeah.
good
Yeah. Yeah.
times.
Yeah. For sure. Now,
Yeah.
did you get your hemoglobin acre on the mountain, or did you
On
get
the
it down
mountain.
on the
On the
mountain?
mountain.
Yeah.
Yep.
They,
Yep.
for a while, they started doing it on the parade deck once you march down. So
Okay.
you climb the mountain, get to the top, uh, and then once you're up there, they just kind of, I think there was like a hip pocket class or something they gave, and then you march back down. So they were doing
Okay.
that for a while,
Okay.
and it was an actual ceremony on the parade deck.
Yeah, it was on top of the Reaper, and there was a small area. I remember there being, some flagpoles there. So they had the Marine Corps flag, the United States flag, maybe a couple other things. It was just a small little area. We're all lined up, in rank and file, and essentially just going down the line, getting our EGAs, and there wasn't a dry eye to be found, at least as far as I could see. And so it was a small ceremony. We just wanted to get out of there and get down to get our really nice buffet of chow, just
The,
after
do they call it the Warriors Breakfast then?
Warriors breakfast. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most people got sick from it because they ate so much.
Exactly.
I don't blame them
Exactly.
though. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was really interesting because it was something brand new, and we were all going through it for the first time. Even the DIs going through it for the first time. So it was kind of cool to be part of something relatively new for the Marine Corps at the time, because I think it was
Yeah.
General Krulak that actually brought that into
Mhm.
play. So yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was. I think that's a great thing that they've been doing.
Mm,
And now, if I'm not mistaken, they do it a little bit earlier because they have 2 weeks now of Marine. Well, I would say Marine Week, but it's 2 weeks. So
mm.
so they try to get them used to being in that Marine mindset versus being in a recruit mindset before they send them off.
Gotcha.
I don't know how that's working. I have no idea. It didn't happen when I was on the depot, so
Yeah.
but
Mm.
seems to be okay.
Good stuff. Yeah, good stuff. I mean, again, it's one of those things that, it's the rite of passage for all of us. And that is
That's right.
literally the one thing we can all say, we've been there, we've done that. We earned the title in the same way, shape, or form. Doesn't matter if you're on the left coast or the right coast. We all
Yep.
did the same thing. Of course, even though there is that friendly rivalry between the Hollywood Marines and, dealing with San Diego, and then of course Paris Island dealing with the sand fleas and everything else from what I've
That's
heard.
right.
I'll always say though, I think as much as it sounded like hell out in Paris Island, I will say the one thing about MCRD San Diego though that I thought was more torture than anything else, and anytime I go back down there, I feel that same feeling, is that the barracks that we were sitting in or staying in, literally my rack was facing the windows that looked out across, and you could see every minute and a half, 2 minutes, you're seeing another plane take off because
Yeah.
the international airport was right there. And I said, man, to me, that's the torture, because you're looking at every one of those planes, whether you're in the barracks, you're out running, doing your thing or whatever. You're just saying, God, I would give anything to be on that plane right now, getting the hell
Oh
out of
yeah.
here.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that everybody says is San Diego's got the mountains, and then Paris Island's got the sand fleas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've never experienced saying please, so I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah.
I hear it's not pleasant, but I haven't had the pleasure. So
Yeah. Well, I couldn't
always
imagine being out there in the swamps and the humidity, because obviously we didn't have that really much to deal
yeah,
with on the West Coast. But yeah.
very true.
All right. So, anyways, yeah, I mean, so literally that's kind of what brought me into the Marine Corps, brought me out to 29 Palms. And then, I only did 4 years active duty and then got out. So, I spent my entire then essentially 3.5 years in 29 Palms. Did quite a few things out there. Obviously, was part of all the different bands and things like that. Did a little bit of some small ensemble stuff. Did the show band. Did the jazz band, or the dance band as it was called back then. Tried to pretty much do whatever I could, and truly enjoyed my time there, and served with some absolutely wonderful Marines. Some that obviously stayed in for 20 years or more. You being one of them. But I literally would not trade it for the world. I think it's really kind of sad though that 29 Palms is no longer a band, just like Albany.
Yeah.
It was something that I doubt will probably ever occur again. And
Probably
that's
not.
why it's so strange to me now to watch the Rose Bowl parades, of course, and not see four bands, in their
Mhm.
marching. Now only seeing three bands, and certainly don't miss marching in the Rose Bowl. I will say that, but it was quite a time, and I think being out in the desert and being it really, we as Marines, or we as the unit there, I think it made us quite a bit closer maybe than some other units, just because there was nothing to do. You're out in the middle of the desert. You had your people that you knew, you had your things that you did day in and day out, but other than that, you kind of had to make up your own fun from time to time. And whether it was driving to Vegas, driving down to Palm Springs, or whatever the case may be, all I can say is I knew that the one thing I didn't want to do was live in the barracks any longer than I absolutely have to. So the sooner, as soon as we got the opportunity and they said, okay, you guys can live off base if you want, because they were having some issues with shortages for barracks rooms and things like that. Um, I remember at the time, Heindel, who was a percussionist in the band there, him and I got close both at the school, but then once we got out to 29 Palms, he arrived I think about a month and a half after I did. He said, and I remember him saying, he goes, man, if it wasn't for you being there already when I got there, because he actually drove out his POV with his drum set and everything else packed to the ceiling in his car. He drove out all the way to California. He said, "Man, if it wasn't for you being there," he goes, "I don't think I would have gotten through it, to be quite honest." But anyways, him and I,
Wow.
we literally were the first. We said, "Yep, we're getting off base. We're renting a house," and him and I lived together off base for the rest of the time. But man, some amazing memories, and it's something again that I would never trade the world for. I miss it. Absolutely from time to time. I miss the camaraderie. I miss the experiences. There's certainly some things, of course, I don't miss, but I kind of think sometimes, just like back when I was trying to think, should I go in or not? Now I think about, man, what would it have been like, if I would have stayed in? Because here it is, I got out in 2000, and it's been almost a quarter of a century since I
Yeah.
got out, and it's I just think seeing yourself just retiring. And then for those of you that know Gary Robeson, I went down to San Diego to be there for his retirement.
Nice.
I served with him obviously in Twin Palms, and you did as well. I made sure to go down there and be there for his retirement. I think I was one of the only old guys, I guess if you could say that, people that he originally served with, that was actually there for his retirement. And so I look at people like yourself and like him, and hey, you guys had an amazing career, did lots of amazing things, and I think about, man, what would my life would have been if I would have stayed in and done that? Where would it have taken me? But then
Yeah.
again, I also think about, then all of the things that I did experience would have never happened either. So it's
Very
it's
true.
one of those things. Yeah, very, very interesting time though, and I absolutely love doing it. I wish I'd have been better prepared going in, of course, had that physical fitness part of it nailed down and everything else. But hey, there's a reason for everything. And I'm sure I was a better person because of it, spending those extra
Oh
four
yeah,
weeks. Yeah.
absolutely. Hey, well, let's go back to so you get to 29 Palms.
Yeah.
Kind of talk through some of the things that you did there in the band. So, like places you went, maybe
Mhm.
different gigs or experiences that you had. Like,
Yeah. Obviously we spent a lot of time in the area, especially between Yucca Valley, Palm Springs, and all that, doing all kinds of local events and whatnot. We were kind of, they always called us Palm Spring. We were the Palm Springs band, literally. They owned us. We were going down there for anything and everything. But I will say a lot of the gigs that we had that we could literally get out of the desert are probably some of the most memorable things that I have. One of them going up to Montana. I'd never been to Montana in my life. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful state, wonderful people, great weather. Had an absolutely amazing time up there. I'll never forget when we went out to this. I don't know if it was a farm or a ranch or something like that, and they were there to feed us and whatnot, and they basically said, "Hey, we have a gopher problem out here, and you guys being Marines, we have a bunch of 22s and we have a lot of shells." And they said, "You know what? You guys want to go have some fun? You're going to be our exterminators. Go out there and shoot as many damn gophers as you possibly can." And I mean, could you imagine a better setup where one, they're going to feed you, and then they're going to give you weapons and ammunition and say, "Let's go kill some stuff." So
yeah,
I remember that being just a hell of an afternoon, having lots of fun with other Marines and going out there shooting gophers. I mean, it's something, again, I'll just never forget. It was a great experience. But that Montana trip was one of those gigs that I had a great time at. But I think probably the most memorable were the multiple trips to New Orleans and doing Mardi Gras.
oh yeah,
Absolutely amazing time. Not only, one of the years we stayed actually on the USS Carter Hall, and that was actually a naval hospital ship, to be lack of a better term. And so, for those of us certainly in the band and obviously being on a base, the chances of us ever getting on a ship are pretty slim. So,
yeah,
staying on a ship for a couple weeks was a very interesting experience, being that I'm 6'6". Those racks, three stacked three high. You don't have a lot of room to stretch out in there. Now I certainly had a much bigger appreciation for those either Marines or seamen that spend time on ships and have to be stuffed in those kinds of quarters for months on end. So that's something I'll never forget as well. But then we also stayed also on a base, the local base there at one point. So those were great trips just because, again, interacting with the community, doing all the different parades that we did, the different the Rex crew, the different crews that they have down there for the different parades and the floats and all that. Obviously had a great time. Quite a few of us probably drank a little too much and partied a little too much, and had some great
yeah.
memories of that as well.
So, the parades, there was, I can't remember what two, but there's two parades that they kind of intersect, right? So,
Mm,
like, one parade would stop and then they'd go through and they'd stop. And then, so
yeah.
it was like a stop and go type of thing. Do you remember doing that parade?
I do, and I don't remember what parades those were, just like you said. I think the only parade I can really remember, and I think this was it the Rex one? All I remember is that literally for probably three-quarters of the parade, it was pouring, pouring rain. I mean, we were soaked from head to toe, and obviously instruments and everything else. Sure, they work, but it's not the best. And I'll just never forget, having those dress blues on and just being soaked, literally soaked for the rest of the parade, and we were just absolutely miserable. But hey, we got the job done. But that certainly wasn't the best experience out of all those. But good time. It was still a good time. Good time to be there and had an absolute blast. So
Yeah, absolutely. If you think back, there was a time that a Marine band went there, and they I don't know if they all got arrested, but they got into a fight with all the cops.
mm.
Trouble.
There
So
was
every time we go, that was the don't get in a fight with the cops.
Yeah. Well, there was I have a picture out there somewhere. And it was actually McLaughlin. We had him behind a cop car with his hands behind his back, and it was a great picture. So of course, they said stay away from the cops, keep your head clean, don't get in
Yeah,
trouble or whatever. But of course, Marines being Marines, you got to joke around and have a good time and whatever. So it was funny seeing those types of things. We got some good pictures, but yeah, it was yeah, those are memories that'll never ever be replaced. And I've always said to everybody, hey, if you've never been to New Orleans, you got to go there at least once. Yes, and you got to experience Mardi Gras. I said I'll never go back from Mardi Gras because I had enough of it during those couple
Yeah.
years. But I said if you've never been there, you've got to see the craziness once in your life. But I love the city and everything we were able to do while we are there, and it's actually one of my favorite cities now to go as a civilian and go back to and enjoy all the sights and the sounds and the smells and everything else. It's one of my wife and I's favorite cities to actually go to.
Yeah, yeah. I will
Yeah,
say, food. Oh my God, good. Oh
yeah,
yeah. I'm
absolutely.
hungry now. That's great.
Yeah. And I'll
Good to
probably
talk
say
about food.
one other probably the other gig that if I think about that I mean obviously the Rose Bowl things were quite an experience being with the other bands and all the rehearsals that we were doing up and down the flight lines and everything else. Those are something of course also I'll never forget just being a part of those and participating in something that is watched by hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, both on TV and live. But yeah, there was this one gig in Parker, Arizona, and it was nothing special. It was, but this local VFW that was there, I've never felt so welcomed by, older Marines and Army guys and whatever. I mean, just being there in that VFW, them feeding us the stories that were told by the older generations, playing, we drank with them, we played horseshoes with them, just hanging out and being there. They were some of the most grateful and humble people I've ever met in my entire life. And it's something I'll never forget. And you felt like you were home. You felt like this is where I belong because they made sure that they knew what it was like to be a young military person, and they made sure to take care of us and give us everything we could possibly imagine to be comfortable. And I will say they did the same thing in Montana as well. But that Parker, Arizona gig for me was so memorable, and lots of pictures of that as well. And and that's why now, whenever I can get a chance to talk to an older military person, if I see them in a Korean War hat or Vietnam War hat or whatever it is, I love to just spend a couple minutes and hear their story. What do they have to say? And I think that was probably for me one of those most memorable gigs. But I think it was also due to our leadership. Our leadership at the time, Chief Warrant Officer Smith, and then at the time it was Gunny Boatwright, or not Gunny Boatwright. He was there, but it was actually who was the drum major after that? I'm trying to remember. God, I can't think of his
Gleason.
name now. What's that?
Gleason.
Gleason, yes. It was Gleason and Smith that literally they made it their mission to find us the cool gigs, the cool trips, get us out of the desert. And they would not take just any gig just because it was a gig to take. They would literally vet these things properly and make sure that we were set up, we were taken care of, it was a good place to be, the travel was good, everything. That was something I think that I really do appreciate. And, it was really, it made being in that unit at the time in the desert that much more enjoyable for me because our leadership truly cared about their Marines and took good care of their Marines. And I think the music that came out of that unit, the quality, the level of difficulty, and those types of things that we weren't afraid to take anything on, and I think that's what made so much of the memories and enjoyable things that we did. And so lastly, I'll wrap up with one other memorable gig that I'll never forget was actually doing I don't remember the acronym, but it was the Music Educators Conference down in Phoenix, Arizona. And what was interesting about that, and we'd actually started working on the music ahead of time, but one of the most memorable performances of that, one, I was actually, it was a few months before that, but I had actually become, I don't know if you want to call it the voice of the band, but I had actually become the narrator for the
Yeah.
band and was doing that quite a bit across different gigs. But that gig especially was interesting for me to also do those duties with as well. But we got to play some amazing music. And I think the most memorable thing, and it's unfortunate that he passed away, but one of the most successful and memorable composers in Hollywood, Michael Kamen, Actually, we played one of his songs with him, and it was, the theme from Robin Hood. He did the music for all of that, and they brought him to that conference, and he actually conducted the band, the 29 Palms band in that composition. And I have some very cool pictures of some of the Marines with him, backstage and whatever. And just the fact that we got to meet literally a living legend like that, who, like I said, unfortunately passed away, but the fact that he took time out of his schedule to be there at a music educators conference and actually lead our unit, our band in one of his compositions, that's something you'll absolutely never forget. A very, very cool opportunity.
Yeah, and it's amazing throughout the years as I've gone from band to band, different places and things. Some of those key individuals, very prominent in their musical skills and stuff like that, that actually love playing with the military bands, and it's playing with, conducting, whatever the case may be. It truly is amazing some of the talent that we get to see as we're truly amazing. But I will say, 29 Palms was, I would say it's probably the best band as far as musicianship that I've ever been in.
Nice.
Rob Merriking has a recording of us down in Palm Springs. We were doing a concert, and I remember one of the tunes was Blue Shades. And
one of my all-time favorite songs. Yep.
It was for the drummers, man. That's a great tune to play. But yeah, just incredible. It's not an easy tune to play, and everyone in the band they stood up, they did what they had to do. I mean, it was a great concert, and even today, like I listened to a good portion of the concert with him, and I'm like, that was a really good band. And there's some good bands now. Don't get me wrong, but we were pretty tight. We were pretty good.
Yeah, I think that I've heard, and I don't know if you can confirm this or not, but I think they've actually raised kind of the standards of those that they're accepting into the MEOP program. There's a lot more people with music degrees and those types of things. But I will say, I agree with you. Back when you and I were there in 29 Palms, we heard other bands, we saw other bands, and of course we respected everybody. But I will say there was the complement of Marines that were in the band at that time, the leadership, musicianship, everything that was going on, we certainly were the cream of the crop at the time. I mean, it was, you really could not, there was no one else you could stack against us at the time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And not to mention you had mentioned before the camaraderie and stuff like that, but we were such a tight-knit unit that when we did play together, and man, we held each other to the standard too. Like if somebody didn't practice and they came into rehearsal, it was everyone dogged that person out until they went and fixed themselves, and you don't see that as much, which I don't know if it's a good thing, a bad thing, whatever. But man, we used to call each other out all the time, and it was almost like a pride thing to call out another section, call out another person, which is kind of funny. Marines today don't understand that when I tell them, "Are you serious?" It was ruthless. Like you wanted to practice.
Well, I remember because I mean, you probably agree with this. I think the trombone section was actually probably the ones that got yelled at the most when I was there. And what I thought was interesting is that Robeson was part of that section at the time. Yeah. And if you would have said, pick for me the 5 Marines or 10 Marines or whatever that you think are going to stay in and make a career out of it, Robeson would have never been one of those guys that I picked because that section got picked on so much. And we sat right in front of them, so we always would see the bullets flying at them. And so that's what I think was so interesting, how he went on and did some really amazing things and had some amazing accomplishments. I would have never guessed that back in 2000 that he'd have been one of the guys 22 or 23 years later that I'd be at his retirement celebrating with him. So very, very cool stuff.
Yeah. And that dude is incredibly smart. I mean, amazing. Because he was with me at the school for a little while. So I was the band master, senior enlisted, and then he was master. And I would have something, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. Go down and be like, hey, how do I do this? And he'd be like, oh, it's real simple. And he'd blah, 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 blah. He'd just, knock it out in a heartbeat. And then
Yeah,
I'm like, oh wow, you rock. Thanks, man.
that's
But
awesome.
yeah, super smart dude. And he's got a work. I don't know if he finished his degree or if he's working on it in psychology. Is he still
I
working
don't
on that?
I don't remember. I think his either he did just complete it or he was getting close to. I know that when he was getting out, he was actually going to work for Tesla, which I thought was really interesting because that's an
Wow.
amazing company. But now, obviously in the news, we've seen lots of, I think they laid off over 6,000 people. I don't know if that he was one of those individuals. I think it was mostly in Texas, but just the fact that he was going to work for such a prominent company like that,
Yeah,
again, great accomplishments all around, no doubt.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, we're getting close to that hour mark now, but looking back on your time in the military, is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with right now? And now we're going to come back, so we're going to talk about after the military and everything. But
Mm.
what would you want to leave the listeners with right now?
Well, I would say, especially for those individuals, if you're still in, whether you're in the beginning, getting to the end of your enlistment, or whatever the case may be, is that just always remember to take advantage of every opportunity that you have. Um, Work hard, play hard, of course, but that time will come and go very quickly. And the thing is that I've seen a lot of people throw away that time and not take advantage of it, spending a lot of time getting in trouble or whatever the case may be, and just not really putting in all the effort that they should be. And this translates into the rest of your life is that, you know, take it for what it is. Realize, yes, it's not the most, probably what people would say, the most glorious job in the world, but one, you have the honor and privilege of serving your country, which, that's something that most people will never get the time or the chance to do in their life. So, that's a huge thing right there. And if you're already in, obviously, they've bestowed upon you some level of trust and confidence, that you're going to be able to do and be successful in what you've chosen to do in your career. But don't take any of that for granted. Soak up every opportunity that you can. When they ask for volunteers, put your paw in the air and say, I want to do that. Maybe you might not like it, maybe you will, but you'll probably learn something from that. So take those opportunities. Network, network, network. And, we'll talk about this more a little bit later, but I can't tell you the amount of friendships and counsel and just things that you can take away from the military and help you succeed with your family life, with your work life, with your whatever it is. A lot of the things that I learned being a Marine, whether it's, obviously on time is late, early's on time, those types of things, thinking
Heck
about the
yeah.
discipline, thinking about being organized, thinking about being clean and neat, all the things that I think that I learned while I was in. I thought I was great before I went in, but I really wasn't. Coming out of there, I was a completely different human being, and I'm better off for it. So, take advantage of that time. Try to find those opportunities that may or may not exist. Don't be afraid to volunteer for things. And also really think hard about, if you're getting to that point where you want to get out, is that something that you really want to do? Is there other opportunities within the military? And it doesn't necessarily have to be with the branch of service you're in. One of the guys, you and I served with, he's been a Marine, he's
Mm-hmm.
been in the Navy, he's in the Army, he's literally done everything besides the Air Force. There's opportunities out there in other branches of the service too. So don't sell yourself short and think about, well, I'm just tired of this. I'm going to get out. I'm going to go do something else. I'm telling you right now, the job market is tough. The real world is tough. There's a lot of things in the military that you'll probably never, ever see again. So don't be so quick to discard those things. Take them, don't take them for granted. Be grateful for the opportunities in front of you and be grateful for the Marines or airmen or whoever you're serving with. Be grateful for the opportunity of the time that you get to serve with them. Learn about who they are, learn about where they came from, what their background is, their family, all of those things, because you will form lifelong bonds and friendships that will ever be able to come in between, or will ever be able to, to take that away from you. And I feel very blessed for the Marines that I got to serve with and still talk with. There's literally a couple of us that have an ongoing Facebook Messenger. It's been going for years now. And every single day, and I'm not even joking, whether it's a funny meme, a funny joke, hey, my mom did this, hey, one of my relatives passed away. I mean, literally A to Z. We talk about everything and we are there to support each other. And those gents, I wouldn't trade for the world. I love having those things. So take advantage of those opportunities of camaraderie, fellowship, whatever it is that you can garner from your time in the military, and literally just take it for what it's worth and put forth max effort and try to be as successful as you can. And if it's not the place for you, that's okay too. But just realize what you learned and what you experienced in the military will follow you the rest of your life. And it's important that you remember that and also never forget it either.
Yeah. Wow. That was really good. I like that. So, hey, thanks for coming on, sharing the first part of the story. I'm excited to have you back to do the second part. I know you got some good scoop for everybody on that as well. For all the listeners, we talk about camaraderie, we talk about that bond and things of that nature. One veteran life loss is one too many, and unfortunately, there's a lot of issues and problems with people, trying to hurt themselves and those types of things. And we need to try our best to not do that. There's plenty of options out there for you. Um, the VA has great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can also text 939-288, or you go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on that chat icon. Any of those options are going to be able to put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. Reach out to somebody. If it's me, if it's Cory, it's somebody. But I promise you, all of us care about you. We want what's best for you. So please, please, please reach out for help. One last time, thanks, Cory, for coming on. To all the listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks.
Absolutely. Thank you.